Good morning, everyone. Mitchell Hora here. Sorry for being out on the road here today, but we will pay attention and have a conversation here. My name is Mitchell Hora. I'm the founder and CEO here at Continuum Ag. Welcome to another CI Chit Chat, where we're going to answer your questions about all things CI and 45Z and low carb biofuel and carbon and all the do these every and they get recorded on our website and on the Continuum Ag YouTube page if you want to go check them out there. Quick little tee things up like we always do before I get to my special guest here today. So what are we talking about with carbon intensity? Carbon intensity it's a whole suite of different offers that we have here at Continuum Ag through our software topsoil. Carbon intensity or CI entails a variety of things. We provide CI scores through the U.S. Department of Energy's GREET model. We've got a verification program we call CI certification, helping farmers get verified CI scores, which happens field by field, and basically every bushel gets a verified CI certificate. We're having this conversation because there's the 45Z tax credit, which is still due to start on January 1. It was part of the Inflation Reduction Act that passed into law 2 years ago, and it pays or rewards low carbon biofuel producers with tax credits. Those tax credits can be turned into cash. So part of lowering the carbon intensity of the biofuel is to have low carbon grain. And that's where we start, helping farmers to get their low carbon grain and get it verified and bring all that to the table. No major updates from the IRS here recently. They are communicating back and forth with the ethanol plants and biofuel producers right now. We know that some of those conversations are going on, asking questions about how to calculate CI, how to calculate 45Z, and just kind of an open dialogue going on right now. But no major other updates, and don't know when any major updates will happen. But we know they have to make some progress by the end of the year, and we're going to make sure that our farmers are in position and ready for it. I think it's too big of an opportunity to pass up, and we need to be ready to rock and roll. Other couple quick things. We've got a price increase, or basically an early deadline that goes into effect this Friday, August 30th. After this Friday, we do have a rush fee if you want to still get in on tranche 1. So if you're going to get verified, get it in by this week. Hit us up, or we can connect you with one of our sales reps who could get your farm enrolled. We have to send our first round of data to the verifiers in October. So in order to give us time, we really encourage you to go ahead and get signed up now if you want to be part of tranche 1. You can wait and be part of tranche 2, which will happen sometime after the first of the year. We don't have the final dates locked in yet, and we don't know the pricing of tranche 2 here either. So if you want to be in and be at the forefront of this, now's the time to do it, because we have these deadlines coming from the verifier. So absolutely go time. And part of that, making that push, happy to welcome in our new VP of Sales, Mr. Blaine Groth. Blaine, I'll let you introduce yourself and say hi to the whole crew here. Maybe start there, just kind of introing yourself, and we'll roll from there.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. I guess I could have just let you do it too. You're such a good talker too. So, no, good morning, everyone. My name is Blaine Groth. I am a fifth generation farmer up in Tate County. Farm there with my wife and my parents. Big background in agronomy and ag systems technology. So when this opportunity came to my plate, I was ready to jump on it and work with Continuum. Got a great team here. And just a little bit about my background is I've really worked directly with farmers to help increase profitability in their operations, whether that was through precision ag applications, software, hardware. And now when we have this opportunity right in front of us, feel like it's a great opportunity to go out there and grab some extra premium for guys that are doing some of these practices or want to learn more about these practices and capture that premium.
Blaine, tell a little bit about your kind of soil health journey, because that's where we connected, right? Is we've been working together in some of Continuum's legacy business. We still do the Haney soil health test. We still do some regenerative ag consulting. Obviously, it's not the focus of Continuum anymore. But I mean, a lot of this starts with your soil health journey. Maybe back us up a couple years and walk us through that.
Yeah, great point, Mitchell. So came across Continuum quite a few years back now, I guess, and obviously things looked a little bit different, but I was farming some relatively tough ground, really rolling terrain, just hillier ground, a little bit tougher soil, and started down the path of cover crops. We've been relatively no-till for the most part in a lot of our rolling terrain, slightly rolling to goat mountains, as I call them, up in Tama County. So kind of went down that journey of just trying to learn more of how to manage a cover crop and leaned very heavily on Mitchell at that point, to go down that journey. So that's probably been what, Mitchell, 6 years ago now, or somewhere around that
Yeah,
time
a long time.
that I've been utilizing
Yeah.
cover crops on my farm, and my dad's been utilizing it on his too, alongside with some crop rotations with just oats and wheat and alfalfa. So that's kind of led us to the point of growing some of those crops and selling them as cover crops too. So we've really been entrenched in this market for probably about 6 years now, and practicing what we preach, really.
Yeah. So kind of diversifying and actually harvest some of those small grains stuff too, right? What are a couple of those that you've utilized?
Yeah, my dad runs. It's more focused on cover crops for like seed corn country, I guess, for guys that want to get oats out there and get a cover on it after seed corn harvest. But my dad runs kind of like a small grains business of predominantly oats this year. So we'll plant them, combine them, and clean them and bag them and resell them on the cover crop market. So
And seeing what's been the take on that and watching it kind of grow over these same couple of years that you guys have been getting into all this.
yeah, the interest has just been increasing since day one, right? So it originally started out, my dad would sell the cleaned and bagged oats for, horse people and needed it for animals, livestock, creep feed. And then it really kind of opened up the doors in the cover crop market. And that's really helped us continue moving that and being successful in it, right? So start out with oats. We've played with having some wheat too, and we'll probably continue that with some rye here as the years roll on.
Yeah. Yeah, we've played especially with rye, but some wheat, some barley, and some different things. Very really similar on our operation. Worked really well. Um, Talk a little bit about how your data journey has progressed and how are you guys utilizing data on your farm? How have you been monitoring some of these different carbon or sustainability programs? Maybe walk through that first before we get into CI.
Yeah, so a lot of my background, just for everybody to know, I guess, has been focused on data and clean data. So predominantly my whole career out of college has been managing farmer data, which was a challenge out of the gate when you're talking 10 years ago now, or a little bit more. So uh, we've really focused on data integrity and having as clean of data as we can. That's been something that we did a lot of work on our farm to kick out good data so that we can make a lot of analytical decisions based off of soil health, soil fertility, seed selection, the list goes on, right? So really have done a lot of work on that. Some of these carbon programs, and something that led me to Continuum and CI scoring and why it was so attractive to us, was because when dad and I were evaluating some of these programs, the payout just it wasn't substantial enough for us. I guess for people that were practicing cover crops and no-till and some of these other sustainable or regenerative practices. So this really got us interested in CI scoring and participating in this market and getting premium, especially if we have some suppressed prices right now and a little bit more lower margin times. This is the time more than any, I think, that people should be interested in at least putting my farmer cap on and on our farm. This can be the difference, guys, I think, in making a good profit on the farm, and not when we're getting back in this.
Yeah.
I farmed through this the last go around, right? Had really high prices and was on this roller coaster of going through low prices for 5 6 years. So this is something I'm really excited about for my own farm, and I'm really happy to be participating in this and bringing this to the farmer.
I think it's about being creative with all this stuff, right? That $3.50 corn is gonna be tough to keep paying the bills. We have to be creative to make it work, and obviously, as you know, if you've been following us for a while, we don't have all the answers yet. We don't have all the IRS rules. We don't know when we're going to get them. There's more and more companies that are talking about their pilot projects and talking about 45Z, but it's all just really small scale, saying, hey, here's 5 cents or 8 cents or 10 cents to get the ball rolling. But they're doing that basically out of their own pocket to begin with. They don't have 45Z yet. They don't know how this is going to work. But at least they're starting to pay attention. And Blaine, yeah, to your point, like we got to figure out how to pay the bills, because these crop prices doesn't look like they're going to get better anytime soon. And we're going to need some opportunity to bring some cash to the farm. And I don't know. I think there's a variety of different programs out there. We're involved in a carbon inset program as well. That's good. It's mostly focused on soybeans, but we're gonna have to figure out where some additional cash can come from. And I think this is it. But Blaine, how are you approaching maybe some of those risks that we still don't know all the details yet?
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, Mitchell, there are some other programs, right, that we can kind of quote unquote hedge our bets there. So there's some of those programs out there we can still participate on it. But I'm willing to take that risk, I guess, for what it costs, and have that opportunity to be at the front of the line for our farm, and give us that opportunity to market some of those bushels at an added premium, right? So maybe there's some bushels I didn't get marketed or hedged here this past summer, looking to get those off to an ethanol plant that would be participating in 45Z and start stacking some of that premium.
Yeah. And I think what you're hitting on is right, where it's the upside opportunity far outweighs, in my mind, anyway, outweighs some of the risk. Now, obviously, things are tight. Like, we can be really, very diligent with those on-farm funds. So I totally understand that as well. That's what we're trying to, like, of course, be focused on CI and get ready for that and be at the forefront of that. And obviously, we are trying to be there more than anybody else, while at the same time making sure that there's plan B and plan C and plan D, because this is a tax credit, and stroke of a pen, it could be gone. We don't even have the rules yet. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think the potential upside is big enough that, like, I'm definitely not going to sit on the sidelines, obviously, and obviously, Blaine, now your story is right in the same lines. Where it's like, I'm going to sit on the sidelines. We're going to make sure that we're in the game and at least in position to try to win.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why you work with companies like Continuum Ag that you know and trust, that have your best interests at heart too, right? And that we're working behind the scenes to help hedge your bets and possibly have some other programs that people could participate in. So that's why I think you just find a really good trusted partner in anything in agriculture, and this is one of them. I feel Continuum is a really good trusted partner for people.
It's a really good point, Blaine. And at Continuum, obviously, this is why I started my own software and stuff as well, because I was accumulating a lot of my own data. I wanted to protect it for myself. I'm trying to figure out how to get paid for CI on my own farm.
Right.
So while I was building systems for myself, build it for everyone else. And our farmer owns their own data. We don't share it with anybody without your direct approval. And farmer owns their own data. Blaine, you've been in this data space and working for a variety of technology companies. How have you kind of approached that, and what's your kind of thought process and all that to value of farmer data, protecting farmer data? Obviously, you've had a lot of conversations with farmers over your career about their data and managing it. And what are those conversations like, and what's your approach here?
Yeah. So it's a great point. That's always a sensitive topic too. So I'm glad you brought it up, and what Continuum's stance is and your data policy, because that's important, right? So I came up in a space where people were transitioning from desktop software for my John Deere. So when I was at John Deere dealership, I did a lot of beta testing for my John Deere in Operations Center. And that was always a concern, right? And Some companies have differing data policies where, they might say you own it, but you kind of don't too, right? So it's really important to have somebody that like Continuum, and my previous company that I worked for too, they had really strict data policies because we know it matters, right? And there's monetary value to that, and we're getting to that point where, you know, back 5, 10 years ago, even people were like, well, my data is probably not worth that much, or there's not much there. There is, obviously now. So
Yeah.
there's monetary
Yeah.
value to the data, and we take that seriously here. And we have that stance that you own your data, and we will not do anything with it unless given your blessing to participate in something. So
Yeah.
great
And
mention, I think, and something we need to hit on.
it's a really interesting actually where my head just went to on like farmer know where your data's at, know how they're using it already. Some of these claims, they could just utilize a boundary and use remote sensing and make a pretty decent claim on a lot of stuff like different non-deforestation claims or some of these different some of the practices, you can kind of use some remote sensing to see and assume what was the tillage practices, what was the crop rotation, even kind of what was the yield or in general, what was the yield from remote sensing? Was there a cover crop or not? Like some of those things, the satellite imagery and the remote sensing get pretty dang good at being able to tell a lot of that stuff without you maybe necessarily knowing uh, that they're utilizing that data. And you need to know who you're partnered with, you need to know what's going on. And obviously, a lot of companies do have the farmer interest in mind, right? Like a lot of people are really up on this. They understand how sensitive it is, but obviously for us as farmers ourselves and having as much data in the system as anybody, like it's very front of mind all the time for us that this data does have value, and it could be through 45Z and carbon intensity, but could be through a lot of other angles as well. We need to really make sure that we know what's going on with that data, who has access to it, what your rights to it are, and how it's controlled. So if you ever have questions with that, obviously happy to dig in. The only other caveat I'd add from our side is the only thing that we can do, and in our data privacy, we don't have access to share any identifiable information for a farmer. All that we have the ability to do is run aggregate data and benchmarking, and that's at the county level. So I've been meeting with a bunch of ethanol plants, a bunch of a bunch of elevators, a bunch of different softwares and partners in this space, and we are able to utilize our county average numbers and stuff to be able to show these groups, here's approximately how many bushels we have scored in this county. Here's what the average CI score is. Here's kind of how many acres that represents, but never do we share any names or any identifiable information. But having some of that county level aggregated data provides incredible insight as to what the CI scores are going to be in a supply shed area, so that as these companies start figuring out what are they going to be able to pay and what is their 45Z opportunity going to be, we've got some assessment numbers, we've got some aggregated data that we can run calculations off of, and it's been really insightful. But again, it's only at an aggregated county level or state level. That's it. And again, like obviously I'm pretty public with my CI score. The last year is a negative 4.1. I don't know what I'm going to be this year yet. Won't know exactly until we get the yield data. But everybody should have their own opportunity to disclose what they want to disclose. So that's where we're at with it. But Blaine, all right, I know we got a couple of questions. There was some in the chat. But maybe we dig into some of that. If anyone's got questions, definitely put them in, or especially if you got questions for Blaine.
Yeah, the question I was just going to read to you, Mitchell, was have we been working with farmers who are thinking of moving from corn and beans and wheat to other crops that might have a market in the biofuels and bioeconomy, like sorghum or other oilseed crops that might have lower CI scores, lower water use, etc.? Are there many people when corn prices are so low looking at growing different crops, or is it too soon to be thinking in that direction? It's great question.
Yeah. That's an awesome question. I'm Blaine. I'm sure you've got a thought on it too. Obviously, you guys are already diversifying. I mean, on our farm, we've been growing cereal crops over the winter. We have done some mustard as well, some of the canola, so a little bit of some oilseed crop experience. We were not growing it as an oilseed; we were growing it for seed production. But yeah, I know that there's guys looking at oats as well for processing. There's a facility that guys are working on up in southern Minnesota, I believe is where it's at. Maybe it's northern Iowa, but I think it's
Albert
southern
Lee.
Minnesota in Albert Lane.
Yep.
So southern Minnesota, I know some guys are up in that area. But no, I think I'm super bullish on the winter oilseed crops, whether that be a winter camelina or a pennycress or winter canola. Very, very bullish on that. A lot of interest, a lot of conversation there, but there's not going to be a lot of people plant that this winter. You know, maybe small scale. We've been playing with camelina for the last couple of years. We've played around with some Essex rapeseed, you know, and trying different winter oilseed crops just to get our feet wet. But we've been doing it as a cover crop and part of a cover crop blend just to try to start seeing what species could work for our farm. But yeah, when those markets are there, absolutely think that that is going to be massive. I wish that the processing was a couple years further along, so I think that would be a huge outlet for farmers here this year. A lot of our farmers are, you know, in across the central, you know, corn belt. Not a lot of conversation about going to a milo, you know, sorghum. Not hearing a lot of conversation there, but definitely on the winter oilseed crops and trying to get creative, whether it be with winter oilseeds or like Blaine and I have both been doing some cover crops, growing those over the winter and harvesting those for seed. But Blaine, have you been looking into some of the winter oilseeds?
Yeah, actually, in my previous position or previous role, I had some conversations with companies that were focusing predominantly on camelina. So it's funny that you bring that up, and actually camelina grown in Iowa, so probably about 45 minutes from where I live, actually. So didn't get over there to see the field and see the whole process, but yeah, I mean that's always on my interest to diversify just from a soil health standpoint and get multiple crops through instead of just a corn soybean rotation for our farm. A lot of that focus
Yeah,
has mostly been on just summer cash flow, honestly, too, right? So that's where that stemmed from, of having oats or wheat or alfalfa, right, in the summertime, beyond the soil health component. Got another good
yeah.
question here, Mitch.
No, I think a lot of yeah. Go for it.
Any initial reaction to the South Dakota court ruling on Summit Pipeline? There's a lot of talk within political circles that 45Z needs an extension beyond 2027. Also need passage of legislation to limit feedstock to domestically produced in U.S., eliminating sugarcane ethanol to jet and used cooking oil.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of different political topics there. The summit piece in South Dakota, I can't directly speak to that. As we've shared, would reduce your CI score by around 30 points. So it is a substantial driver, and it could be stacked with the farm. You know, that's kind of our angle there. The some of the government stuff like extension of 45C or the foreign feedstock stuff. Put in a plug here that we've got our Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks joining me on our normal full hour podcast next week. Diana will put the link in the chat, but I mean she's the gal. Marionette Miller Meeks, Southeast Iowa Congresswoman. She is at the forefront of this, so she's the gal that we can really ask that question to again. I am hearing though, it sounds like pretty good movement in the direction of let's extend this and let's try to cut back on some of these foreign feedstocks, especially when there's maybe some fishiness going on, like with the used cooking oil.
Very good. Got one more question here, it looks like. So we'll go to that and address that. Question comes from Glenn on, I've enrolled some acres in indigo for a few years, but it seems the payments have not been great. Mostly no-till wheat, cover crops, beans, and corn rotation. Are there better options currently out there?
But question. Farmers are involved in different programs, and some of the programs you're involved in, you don't even know it. So look at the fine print, look at if they are claiming a carbon outcome, because in the 40B guidance from the IRS, they very clearly said you can't be in a carbon credit program and be in a CI program. As we've said multiple times, we don't have the final 45Z rules, but I have no reason to believe that they'll change their stance on not being able to stack a carbon credit program with CI. Now, until we get the final rules, I still think don't be hasty and unenroll in something. Now, if the money's no good and it's a pain in the butt, a lot of work, maybe it's not worth it anyway. That's up to you. But a lot of these programs, like, I wouldn't get too jumpy about getting out of them when we don't know when these rules are going to come through. And yeah, sure, maybe you end up leaving a little bit of money on the table with 45Z, but you signed your name on the dotted line already. You're contractually obligated to do something, fulfill your contractual obligation, and see what the best opportunity is for the following year. With 45Z, our approach is you own your data. When you enroll in CI certification, you're not actually signing a contract or locked into anything. You still have full flexibility that if a carbon inset or offset program is the best for you, and if we can help you to enroll in it or help you to get your data over there, that's awesome. Like, we'd love to help you with that. But once you go through, verification or utilize those, getting those CI certificates, that's where it's like, all right, let's figure out how to monetize that in a carbon intensity program. Don't know when we're going to get the rules for 45Z, but hopefully it aligns with when our verification is going to be complete, which is February 15th, 2025. So just position your farm, look at what the contract is. I always look at what's going to get me ROI and what's going to be worth my while. Do I trust the group that I'm working with? Is it going to fit into my program? And what's the long-term contract that I'm signing? What am I actually locking in for? And what's the risk that I might be locking myself into the wrong thing? So happy to talk through that on a case-by-case basis. But again, I wouldn't say get out right now, but just know that you likely won't be able to stack. So look at the fine print. I had a direct message here, Blaine, coming in from my buddy Bob, asking about segregating and keeping grain for 2024 grain and holding until 2025 and such. And Bob and everyone on here, one of the things that we were watching very closely is that the Renewable Fuels Association is pushing for the CI certificates to be traded on a book and claim program, meaning that you can harvest this 2024 crop, sell it to the elevator or sell it to the ethanol plant or grind it for feed or whatever you want to do, and then sell your CI certificates separate to whatever biofuel producer would like to buy them and whatever the best opportunity is going to be in a book and claim. So your grain goes one way, the CI certificates can be sold a separate way, and that company claims your CI reduction. That would really open up a lot of opportunity for creativity. Now, we don't know what the rules are going to be, so we cannot guarantee that it's going to be book and claim. It might still be where the grain and the certificates have to stay together. And basically, my take at this point is, I know cash is going to be tight for a lot of farms. If you got to take the bird in hand and got to sell some grain, we got to do it. And you might be missing out on being able to monetize your CI certificates if there has to be that direct connectivity. I think there's still going to be some opportunity for companies to try to look back and try to go get those certificates. But again, or they'll be able to be sold separately. We don't know the final IRS rules. So at this point, I would say if you've got to sell some grain, maybe hedge. And play. I know a lot of guys are playing the markets and stuff too, and trade grain on paper to try to keep their options open. But sometimes if you got to take some cash off the table, sometimes you got to do it. My final thought there. So, all right. I know we're at time. Anything last thoughts here, Blaine?
Don't think I have anything to add. Just great points there, Mitch, too. Keeping the door open and some possibilities that might be in front of us here soon, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, that's what this is all about, right? Continuum Ag is not a CI company. We're a software company helping farmers to monetize soil health, right? And I think the best opportunity is going to be 45Z and going to be carbon intensity. But at the end of the day, we want to help you to to bring dollars back to your operation best we can, and position you to invest those dollars back into long-term resiliency and profitability of your farm. That's what this is all about. So anyway, with that, we'll keep things rolling. Blaine, appreciate you being on. We got some exciting times ahead, and we'll keep on working for farmers here and figuring this out for ourselves as well. So we're all in this together here, that's for sure. But everyone, appreciate it. Maybe we'll run into some of you at Farm Progress Show tomorrow. But other than that, we'll see you next week, and be sure to hop on with Marinette Miller Makes. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone.